relationships. So it's an unfortunate thing, but yeah, we don't really know how government feels as such. We don't work with them that closely, that often. But the ones that we do, we don't think we've got any bad relationships.
What I picked up about what you said earlier is that our jobs as quantity surveyors, whether we, well, mainly in the contractors, quantity surveyor, that role, it evolves over time. So you start with like a machine, I would say, and then you like crunching numbers, measuring, and then slowly you evolve into a role that it seems like you cannot exactly be trained for. You can only learn that job through knowing your company, knowing the industry, basically experience. So what I want to know from you is, with regards to PQS, there's a not natural, but it's like a structured growth from the time we leave here to the next 3 years. Then we need to go for an APC interview, and then we come to PQS, and then go into a firm. And the reason why I'm more favored to the PQS side is because there's nothing. So I don't just go in there and then find that I'm in a position where there's no growth. So in terms of where you are now as an estimator, do you see yourself growing, like into, do you see the next role that you could play in the industry? And how it's different from like what you're doing now is you estimating and
No, it's a good point. I think you do have these in both sides. You do have these kind of steps, if you want to call it that. But obviously, it comes down to your character, your personality, and your ambition of how long you want to stay in that place. So I agree with you. I think a PQS is a little bit more structured. And if you like that, that's great. You know, if you're going to do this for 3 years and this for 2 years and this for 1 year, it's not necessarily going to be like that. You know, if you've got the guts and that, you can grow very quickly. And for some of my colleagues in the industry, they did do exactly that, and they're doing really well. Just because you start in the PQS doesn't mean necessarily you stay in the PQS. One of my good friends, Londi, he started out in the PQS role, and he did exactly that. 3 years, became a professional quantity surveyor, registered, stayed with the PQS firm for another 2 years, and then he got coached by Sun International to become their development manager. So, you know, Sun International wants to build a new hotel. They don't know how much it's going to cost. They don't know where to build it. They don't know what this. So he stepped into that role and said, right, he was the in-house QS for them to say, right, you want to build a hotel, okay, land cost, then this could work. Then go out to the industry, get a PQS in, do a proper bill and all of that feasibility. And then he went to that role, you know, and so it's quite dynamic. To answer your question from my side, I think there's more growth in a contractor QS. You know, I've moved from junior QS to QS to senior QS. Then after that, I went into the estimating department and became almost stepped down to estimator. Then I did that, and now I'm a senior estimator. And yeah, we've got a, what do you call it? We've got a mentor program, and the MD is my mentor. So I see myself, you know, possibly I would never go the commercial director route, because that's almost, for me, that's moving back towards QSing, and I wouldn't want to steer that way. But for me, my next thing is estimating director. So that would be a great step. And then one day, you know, just because there's a lot of MDs out there that are estimators, also QSs. There's a lot of contracts managers, senior contracts managers, project managers that are quantity surveyors. Background. Our project manager at the Portside project, that big tower, he was a QS from a PQS background. So you know, just because you're going a PQS role, once you get in there and you find your feet and you find your passion, it's it's what you want to do, and it's not that hard or not to change, So we actually had a commercial director. This was a while back. Who he loved getting so involved in the actual management, and he wasn't too interested in the numbers side and that he said, stuff this, I want to be a contracts director. And he went from commercial manager to contracts director, and he started running his own projects. He struggled a little bit in the beginning and that, but he did it. So
just going back to the role as a contracts QS when deciding to select subcontractors. How does it work when a QS when it's selected? So they list all the selected ones, and you don't agree on one, and then they don't put it on the list. That list goes out in tender.
yeah.
Do you have to pick the lowest one, or how does it work? By the way, I understand the contractor selects which subcontractors he wants to work with. But if he has to take the lowest one, how much of the selection is needed?
Yeah, no, the selection process is really in who's going to be allowed to tender. So we just, the Century City project, it was a little bit back and forth. Like with everything, it's a negotiation. So I think we started with our list, and we sent it to the professionals and said, that's our list. And their only request was a minimum of 3 subcontractors per trade. And that's fine. I mean, that's quite little actually. So that's great for us, because then we can really work with the contractors, subcontractors that we're comfortable with. Because you always have 3 subcontractors that you're very comfortable with in each trade. So we send them our list, and then the mechanical engineer has input, the electrical engineer has input. Can't we add this guy? They send it back to us. We look at that, say, we don't know him. Ask him to submit his CV or whatever, and we've got a pre-qualification document that we want him to fill out. And it's a bit of give and take, and then once the list is agreed, it goes out to tender. And then when the tender comes back, the tenders come back, you as a contractor, you have a little bit of input, but after that stage, it really becomes a decision of the PQS and the project manager or principal agent. So, and most of the time they are going to choose the lowest because it's in the interest of their budget. It's like saying, I let you tender now, but I don't want to choose him even though he's lowest. Then you mustn't let him tender. Because you were comfortable enough to let him tender, now if he's lowest, he must get the job. So it's that sort of thing. So 95% of the time you will choose the lowest. The PQS will say, right, lowest guy, he'll do his adjudication, make sure he's priced all the items, make sure it's apples for apples. He'll do a proper adjudication. But once he's done that, if this lowest guy's left out something, he'll add on what he's left out. If he's still lowest, 95% of the time you'll get the job. Just to give you an example, we had a tender for that big scaffolding in town that went out recently. And then we only had 2 contractors that were tendering on it. And there was 3 options. It's the Standard Bank Tower and the Tower in town next to Civic Centre. He's scaffolding those whole things. And we gave him 3 options. Scaffold the small tower only, scaffold the big tower only, or scaffold both together. And we sent that out to the contractors. 3 guys. We only got 2 responses back. And obviously, the economies of scale to do both together would be the cheapest, and it was. And the PQS wanted to appoint that, and we fought hard. We said, guys, please, split it between the 2, because then, the responsibility, the risk, it's a huge amount of scaffold, it's massive. At least if we have 2 guys, all your eggs are in one basket, the resources, they've got separate resources, and they can both cope with the program. It's a tight program. And they did do it in the end, even though it cost maybe 3-4 million more, because splitting it, they lose the economies of scale of getting one contractor to do both. They went that route for the benefit of the project. So if you feel strongly about it, you can fight it and say, but ultimately it's their decision. So.
I have two questions.
Yes.
The first one is, like, in the tender stage, the PQS is what's one of the most important things that they kind of overlook that make it hard for them to do cost management in the construction stage. And the second part is when the contractors price the bill, do you consider the technology that you're going to use for and decide after that you're going to use ready-mix concrete instead of batching?
Okay, so your first one was the
PQS
The
is
PQS.
one of the things they disregard that make it hard for them to manage the budget.
Okay, this morning I actually prepared a little bit of the duties of the contract document and the importance of the contract document, especially during the tender stage, from a tender stage aspect. And for me, the contract document can be broken down into 4 major parts. Your main part, and probably your most important, is your prelims. Because that sets the relationship between the parties, between the client and the contractor and the professionals. Then it's your measured BOQ. That's probably the next most important, which is very important. If you miss big items out, it can cost you a lot of money. Then it's your drawings, and lastly, it's your addendums or your annexures, which can be your health and safety, your environmental plan, your geotech report, all that sort of summary stuff. So that would encompass the whole contract document. For me, the biggest thing a PQS can leave out it would be two things. I'd have to say 2. The biggest one would be in the preliminaries. If something is maybe not as clear, it's a hard one. The biggest thing a PQS could leave out. I think it can be the way your contract document, your preliminaries is set up or worded. That can lead to quite big problems, maybe just the clarity of it. Actually, I've got a good example for you. Then obviously also in your measured work, that your measured work, but as a PQS you do that measured work so many times. There's only so many kinds of concrete you can have. There's, you know what the trades are. There's only so many trades. So for me, the longer, when you start out, it's like, wow, so much, and so many items, and for now, it's like you can say it in your sleep. So the bill of quantities is important. Quite a good example is at a project in town. The client, the engineer, specified on the drawings a low shrink concrete on his drawings. Because it's just a special thing, and specified in his drawings very small, low shrinkage concrete. The QS never took that description and put it in his bill of quantities. So he just said 30 MPa concrete, normal, and then he had the items, slabs, whatever. Then, when it comes time to site, and then we price on that basis, 30 MPa concrete, items, and then we get awarded the job, and then when it comes time to start, the engineers, we submit before you start a job, you have to submit your concrete mixes, your mix designs. It's part of the process when you start up. And the engineer's like, where's my low shrinkage mix? I said, what, low shrinkage mix? We haven't priced a low shrinkage mix. And he's like, no, but I said it. And he was like, well, it's not on the bill. And so we were like, fine. We created a new item, 30 MPa concrete, low shrinkage mix, because the standard systems and things, very specific, you need to state what the mix is. Is it 30 MPa normal, is it 30 MPa severe, is it 30 MPa high exposure, all that sort of, you've got the different classes. So we created, and the QS said, no, how can you do this? And he all upset, and he didn't want to pay us and everything, and we said, okay, well, we don't want to fight about it.